Why was the director of Venom happy to not return for Let There Be Carnage? What actually convinced Woody Harrelson to take the role without reading the script? And is Tom Holland's Spider-Man set to feature in the film? Hi, I'm Clive, and I'm feeling hungry for brains. I mean, info. The director's Switcheroo. No one could have predicted how much of a smash hit Venom would become. It was a juggernaut at the box office and a crowd-pleasing blockbuster. But the critics were unconvinced, and director Ruben Fleischer feels they missed the point of the film altogether since it was always meant to be wacky. Well, Ruben didn't get a chance to prove them wrong with Let There Be Carnage, since he had a scheduling conflict with Zombieland Double Tap. He tried to make it work, but Sony wanted to push forward with the movie, eyeing directors such as Travis Knight, Rupert Sanders, and Rupert Wyatt to replace him for the Venom sequel. Ultimately, the studio settled on Andy Serkis, who's an undoubted master of mocap and CGI technologies. For Ruben, he wasn't too bummed about handing over the franchise considering the critical reaction towards it. He questioned whether it was a blowback against Sony or just people who worshipped at the MCU's altar. He said in an interview, "I was kinda happy to let somebody else take over, and I'm excited to see what he does with it." Well, the franchise is certainly in good hands with Andy, and it'll be interesting to see if he brings any new innovations to the special effects and character movements on screen. After all, he was the genius who gave us this gem.
It burns! It burns us!
Woody accepted without reading the script. The greatest comic book movie casting of all time isn't Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, it's Woody Harrelson as Carnage. Honestly, it's as if the casting agents tapped into all our collective consciousness and uncovered the only acceptable actor for this part. Though, all thanks need to go to Venom's director Ruben Fleischer, who felt that Woody perfectly embodied the character in Natural Born Killers, and asked the actor about it while discussing the Zombieland sequel. And Woody actually accepted the role without even reading the script for Let There Be Carnage. Talk about confidence in the vision! He said he just rolled the dice after his cameo in the first Venom film and thought that Tom Hardy was a really good actor to work with. To be fair, we'd probably do the same thing if given the opportunity. Seriously, who wouldn't want to play a maniacal symbiote in a Marvel movie alongside a stellar cast featuring 4 Oscar nominees? It's practically bursting with talent at the seams. Though it could have been much more different had the studio's initial plans played out, and we'll be talking about that intriguing detail next. Carnage was meant to appear in Venom. Every film script goes through several iterations. For Venom though, Sony wanted to pull out all the stops and make it as huge as possible from the get-go. That included featuring Carnage as the main villain of the story. As we all know now, that didn't happen, and we only met Cletus Kasady in a mid-credits scene. Again, Ruben Fleischer needs to be thanked for thinking 2 steps ahead. For the director, he felt like there should be a natural progression and a place to go for Eddie Brock. In other words, he already had a sequel and franchise potential in mind. It makes a lot of sense though, because if you use Venom's greatest villain in the first movie, how do you top that? By allowing the symbiote's origin to be the main focus, Ruben got the backstory out of the way and made space for future tales. And this means that Venom and Carnage's strained relationship can shine in the sequel, rather than being a subplot. Additionally, there's a tease in the trailer that Carnage's origin might be different from the comic book version, but we'll just have to wait and see if it really is. One thing you can't deny though is that the footage is looking good, and Andy Serkis has a theory why. The better special effects. While most studios have been frustrated by how the pandemic has messed up the release schedule for their movies, Andy Serkis is actually quite grateful about it. Not only is he happy for Let There Be Carnage to be released in a time when people can head back to the cinema safely, but he also believes the delay has helped create a better overall product. In fact, he revealed to AP that he's been gifted with the luxury of more editing time and the ability to work on the visual effects. He said, "I think ultimately it's probably going to improve it, to be honest." For fans, that's music to our ears because there's no denying that the first Venom film featured some hot CGI and visual effects. But if Andy, an undeniable expert in mocap and CG, is afforded time to improve and expand on what we've seen in the series, there's a good chance that we could end up with a visual spectacle. Just look at the trailer, for example. How insanely sick does Carnage look? It's like they pulled him straight out of the comics. And speaking of comic book influences, Ravencroft's inclusion points to an expanded universe. DC has Arkham Asylum, and Marvel has the Ravencroft Institute. The good news is, Ravencroft will feature in Let There Be Carnage and play a pivotal role. How big an influence, though, is still to be determined, but there could be quite a few Easter eggs and setups introduced through it. Considering how Venom is set in the Spider-Man universe, it's possible that we could see villains such as Dr. Octopus, Electro, Jackal, Mysterio, and Vulture housed in this institute. More importantly, it could be laying the foundations for a future Sinister Six film, featuring all the big villains, since that's been in Sony's plans for the longest period of time, but has never found enough traction to actually be executed. For Let There Be Carnage, though, we do know that Ravencroft will be the location where Cletus meets the future love of his life and Bride of Destruction, Shriek. But it's likely that we encounter more than a few other dastardly characters there that'll play important roles in the future films to come. Plus, it could also be the beginning stages of a huge, or should we rather say maximum, event that could be in Sony's pipeline of movies. But more about that later. A Tom Holland appearance? Remember that rumor that Tom Spider-Man would appear in Venom? When it didn't happen, it left a lot of fans disappointed. However, there's talk that he actually filmed a cameo for the film, but Marvel nixed its inclusion at the last second. This time, though, it could be a different story. For one, there's a fresh new deal between Sony and Marvel regarding the use of Spider-Man for both studios. There's absolutely no way that Sony won't consider having Venom and Spidey cross paths at some point, since those two characters are so closely tied in the comics. More importantly, there have been a few reports that Tom has agreed to appear in Let There Be Carnage, but no official source has confirmed it to be true. Though a now-deleted Instagram story by Tom Hardy could be teasing, or at least hinting, at Spidey's arrival. Showcasing some gory artwork, Tom showed Venom crunching down on the wall crawler. After sending the fanbase into a frenzy, Tom deleted the post and said nothing further about it. Naturally, there's a lot of speculation about what it could mean. Either Tom is the best troll in the world, or it's a smart way to drum up attention for the film and Spidey's arrival.
Yes, you are.
That being said, we wouldn't expect any potential appearance to be substantial, since that's probably being saved for the next big event, and that is Maximum Carnage! Ask any Spidey fan to name their favorite story featuring the webhead, Venom, and Carnage, and they'll point to the popular 90s arc, Maximum Carnage. Not only was it a huge comic book event, but it also got adapted into a terrific video game. In fact, many fans wondered why the filmmakers didn't just adapt that exact story for Let There Be Carnage. Well, there's probably a good reason for that. And that's because it's likely to be the crux of the third Venom film. In case you didn't know, Tom Hardy is actually signed up for 3 films, so the studio could be saving the best for last here. Film 1 introduces Venom, while Film 2 brings Carnage into the mix. Then, the third one will force the Wallcrawler and Venom to team up to stop Carnage and his family from causing havoc to the city. It'll be a big-time film, kind of like the Avengers, but with Spidey characters. Also, everyone knows that Morbius is an upcoming film in the slate, and he was also a part of Maximum Carnage, so his solo film could be a part of the lead-up to the extravaganza. As we said before, there's simply no way that Sony will keep the webhead away from Venom or Carnage, so it makes total sense to conclude the Venom trilogy with arguably the greatest story. And honestly, we're all in for it. Until then, we'll just have to wait patiently until Let There Be Carnage arrives in cinemas. But you can keep the arachnid vibes going by watching our video about the best bloopers and hilarious moments featuring Spider-Man. And while you're at it, give us a like, share, and subscribe to the channel for some more awesome videos. Thanks for watching.